Listo. Muy buenos días a todos desde México. Me da mucho gusto darles la bienvenida a este primer webinar que vamos a tener desde la oficina de datos.gov.mx y la Coordinación de Estrategia Digital Nacional sobre el futuro de los datos abiertos en México. Mi nombre es Enrique Zapata, soy director general de Datos Abiertos en la Oficina de Presidencia de la República, y hoy tenemos la oportunidad de platicar y de conocer las experiencias de diversos países en materia de datos abiertos. Tenemos también la suerte de contar con miembros de la Organización para la Cooperación y Desarrollo Económicos, la OCDE, que junto con México nos estamos acercando a hacer esta nueva oportunidad de ver cuáles son las acciones y cuál es el futuro de los datos abiertos en México, por lo cual agradezco la participación de todos ustedes en este momento. En unos momentos voy a cambiar al idioma inglés, dado que algunos de los participantes nos acompañan de otros países. Tenemos el chat en el canal de YouTube abierto, en caso de que ustedes, los participantes, puedan tener alguna pregunta sobre cualquier comentario que vayan a escuchar por parte de los participantes, y sin más les doy muchas gracias. So I'm going to switch to English now, and I would like to thank you all for joining this webinar, the Open Data Future of Mexico. We are thrilled in the Mexican government of having first-class intervention from what I would call friends all over the world, in governments that have worked relentlessly to make open data a reality and to make open data an input to create value for the public all over the world. In Mexico, we've been working with open data for over 4 years now. We've had important progress so far, but we also know that we have important opportunities ahead. And to continue working and identifying what actions we should be doing in Mexico to create value for the public, we now have the important opportunity to have the OECD, Bárbara Ubaldi, and Jacobo Arturo Rivera from the Digital Government Unit here with us, helping to understand what these next steps could look like. We are also thrilled to open this new chapter of Mexican open data policy with our friends from all over the world. We have with us Paulina Ferris and Tom Townsend from the Digital Cabinet Office from the UK. We have Gonzalo Iglesias from the Secretariat of Management and Public Innovation in Argentina. We have Cristina Morales Huerta and Salvador Soriano from the Ministry of Energy, Tourism, and Digital Economy from Spain. We have YS Lee from the Agency for National Information Society in South Korea, and that is joining us at very late hours in the night, so thank you, YS, for doing this for Mexico. And in the coming minutes, we will also have the opportunity to count with Paula Forteza from the Assembly of the French Republic of France. So with that, I would like to give the word to Arturo, that will help us understand where we are in Mexico and how we can continue moving forward to create this public value, which is at the center of our public data policy in Mexico. Arturo, yours.
Gracias, Enrique. Buenos días to our nuestros viewers de países de Latinoamérica, and good morning to non-Spanish speakers. The purpose of my intervention is only to provide a really brief background on the main findings and policy recommendations of the 2016 Open Government Data Review of Mexico. Something that's really important to understand is how the country has followed a really short, yet fast-paced policy development in regard to open government data. The Executive Decree on Open Data was published in 2015 by the president of the country, and it was a really important step in the development of the open data policy, because it really set the institutional governance for open data in the country. It set clear responsibilities, clear shared responsibilities between the Office of the President in Mexico and the Ministry of Public Administration, not only in regard to policy definition, but also in regard to policy coordination and instrumentation, which also included, for instance, the management of the Central Open Data Portal. There was also a strong involvement of the National Statistics Office, the INEGI, for the development of guidelines and standards on metadata and for open data in order to help actually public sector institutions to open good quality government data in machine and open in open and machine readable formats. The modifications that took place for the Freedom of Information Act, which for instance included the definition of open data as part of the regulations, the development of the strategic open data infrastructure, which was really useful to prioritize the publication of open data by public sector institutions, but at the same time to align this publication to the priorities of the central government and to broader policy goals, for instance, to the National Development Plan. And of course, we have also the active participation of the Mexican government at the international level, for instance, as an active member of the International Open Data Charter, and at the same time, their participation for the implementation of the G20 anti-corruption open data principles. So all this fast-paced policy development gave birth to three key open data initiatives that were put in place by the Mexican government. For instance, the creation of the Open Data Squads, which was a task force which is in charge of creating capacities and skills and educate public sector institutions, public officials to open up government data in the country. The implementation of the Retos Públicos initiatives, which was mainly focused on together actors from the private sector, from the civil society, and from the public sector as well, to co-create and co-deliver solutions to policy challenges. And also the creation of the Open Mexico Network, which is an initiative which main goal is to reach local governments, to reach the states, to reach the municipalities, to foster the creation of open data initiatives, but also to align these local initiatives to central policy goals. So which are the key challenges that we found at the time? Mainly it was four. The first one is that there was still a need to create a pro-open data public sector. It was necessary to spurring the development of digital and data skills and data stewardship inside public sector institutions. It was necessary also to synchronize the open data, the vision for open data that at the time was being inside the policy coordinated institution, and that vision that was being understood about open data by the public sector, which was mainly focused precisely on public transparency. It was also necessary to foster the demand-driven publication of open data by public sector institutions in collaboration with the several actors, and also consulting them on which their data needs are and were at the time. The contribution to how to build a more mature open data ecosystem, and how to exploit the benefits of new technologies for the construction of a data-driven public sector. I think at this point the key question for the Mexican government, and here I will stop and will lead the word to Barbara. It's what should be done actually to keep up to this pace, learning from the experiences of other OECD countries.
Thank you very much, Arturo. Buenos días a todos. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the countries joining us in this webinar from all over the world. Very briefly, before leaving you the floor, because I think that this is a key space for interaction among countries, not necessarily for the OECD to speak long, but just to focus a bit the reason why we are working with Mexico at the moment. Mexico asked us to accompany the current administration in looking at how the government has been following up on the recommendations that were included in the open data review completed a year ago, particularly with the specific objective of ensuring long-term sustainability, continuity, and resilience of the open data policy of the government of Mexico. In this sense, from our perspective, we're going to be looking at three main aspects that we consider essential to achieve this goal. One is the governance aspect, by which we mean aspects of institutionalizations of the policy, but also the creation of a legal framework that can ensure a very stable framework of reference across administrations. The ecosystem, because without the ecosystem built both inside of the public sector and outside of the public sector of open data reusers, long-term sustainability can't be ensured. And the third pillar, in our view, is the component of monitoring and measurement. Monitoring of the demand of the data, of the reuse of the data, and measurement of the impact. Those are certainly three areas that are still challenging for many countries. Open data has got a momentum across the world, which has enabled many countries to act fast, but now we need to consolidate what many governments have been doing. So these three elements that we'll be looking more in depth as part of this work with Mexico are certainly hot topics on the table of many administrations around the world. For helping Mexico in this sense, we will take as a start point the actions undertaken so far to implement the recommendations included in the review, but also the performance of Mexico in the Our Data Index. The index of the OECD looks at the efforts made by governments to increase data accessibility, availability, and reuse. On one side, we really have to praise Mexico for having scaled up the positioning from the 10th position to the 5th, but more importantly is how can we use the index to see what kind of actions in the three areas Mexico can still undertake to improve the value that is being produced through the open data policies. Last, to learn how to best help Mexico, I think it's important to look at what countries are doing around the world. The best value of open data, OECD open data reviews or peer review projects are the peers. So are the people who in the countries are doing the same work of the administration that we are trying to help. So in this sense, we really think the 5 countries that are accepted to act as peers, in particular France and Korea, with Paula and YS, were also part of the open data review. So they were peers involved in the mission that we undertook a couple of years ago. So we are really thankful to be able to count once again on the expertise of these 2 countries plus 3 additional champions that we work with around the world. I think that the extreme relevance of this work we are doing with Mexico is that open data is a key enabler of a concept that we all hear about, which is government as a platform. And in a way, Mexico is being very forward-looking in asking us, okay, how can you help us making sure that as we help the administration that will come into power in a year from now to set a strategy for the government of the future, we can make sure that open data is part of the actions that are considered as key to make sure that the government is smarter, meaning more intelligent, meaning more capable to use data, to foresee, to better deliver services and to monitor the performance of what we do, but also is more agile. So it's capable to co-create value with a number of stakeholders, as we, I think, all agree, governments can't do it all on its own. So without further delay, I think it's now the time to leave the space to our peers, starting with the colleagues from the UK. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Townsend from the Government Digital Service in the UK. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you and kind of honoured to be invited to take part in this. We have so many friends in the open data space in Mexico who we've certainly learned a lot from over the last few years. So it's great to be able to share some ideas and some of our thinking with you this afternoon. Should I carry on or introduce Pauline? I'll carry on, okay. So what I thought I'd focus on very quickly, just to introduce myself and my role, I lead on open data policy for the Government Digital Service in the UK, but it's worth saying that there are many leads across government taking an active interest in how we kind of achieve some of these kind of themes that you elaborated on, Barbara. I think what I wanted to focus on in the short space of time that I have is where we can see the next frontier in the UK about embedding the use of open data in government and the use of open data to deliver better public services as a way of stimulating and enhancing the open government, the open data ecosystem. I think what we very much see is the need to ensure that as we think about improving public services and we think about the kinds of standards and assurance processes that we wish to put in place as governments for the development of better public services, we really need to think about that kind of big, broad theme about better use of data, by which I mean not just open data, but all types of data that government collects. And Pauline will talk more about skills and capability, which is an absolutely vital pillar of that. But I also think it's about ensuring that as central government in particular, we are enabling those teams, both in central government and local government, who are right there at the front line trying to deliver better public services online. We are equipping them with the insight and access to different types of data that are going to enable them to build that into the services they want to develop. So we are at the moment looking at how we include significantly more advice and guidance within our something called the Tech Code of Practice in the UK. So for those people upstream, as they're beginning to think about building new services in government, that they're really thinking hard about the different types of data sources that are going to be useful for the service that they're designing. And they're thinking really broadly about that. They're not just thinking about government-held, perhaps personally identifiable information, but thinking about open data too. So I think we need to move the open data story much more upstream, if you like, in the service design and delivery process, so that just as projects are getting underway, there is a very broad approach to the sorts of data that's going to make that public service work better for citizens. And I think that's the crucial, the frontier that we're at now, is about translating the movement, the evangelism of open data into something that is going to change people's lives on the ground. And I think that, for me, is the critical aspect of developing a much stronger ecosystem around open data. I think I probably don't have a huge amount more time for my section. As I say, I think the skills and capability aspect of moving those considerations upstream in the service design process are absolutely fundamental. So I think on that note, I'll hand over to Pauline, who can talk us through the kind of UK approach to that.
Thank you, Tom. In terms of skills and development, I'll just say hi very quickly and then ramp into it. Initially, when the UK undertook a transformative approach to digital services using evidence-based decision-making through data, one of the things that we initially did was put people into departments to help build those services and interpret that data. I think the problem that we found after that was that after the services were built, we took our people back. And actually, the next step that we think is most important for continuing to use data effectively, continuing to develop skills and capability, is to actually build a way of developing the skills within the civil service and helping departments themselves actually grow the skills in-house, so that we become a conduit of ideas rather than the only stream of expertise available. Now, step one that we've done to do that is we've actually broken down what we've identified as 37 specific digital data or technology skills across 7 thematic areas. Those job roles take you from perhaps trainee data scientist to the head of data service for the whole of government. Each of them has associated with it the list of skills, expertise, experience, and what you should expect to be undertaking at that level. We're using that as a pillar to promote a consistent adoption and hiring approach for the whole of government, and that work is being bled out across government at the moment. Alongside that, we've developed a GDS Academy, a Digital and Data and Technology Academy, which focuses on training initially agile skills, data skills, etc., through a blended learning approach of both face-to-face and online learning. We work with experts such as the UK government's Office for National Statistics, which runs a data science campus, and that focuses very much on the statistician approach to how to interpret data, how to build a skill base in understanding mapping, and then how to speak to service designers to use data at the beginning of a journey rather than trying to fix a service that's online. So we're coming at it from a multi-stranded way. I'm really, really happy to send some links to Mexico if it would be useful about all of the framework and about the approaches in learning. There is probably a bit more that I could add, but I think I've possibly run out of time at the moment. But I'm happy to pick it up in the Q&A if it would help.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pauline. I'm sure we'll have questions. I would now leave the place, the space and the floor to Paula.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, very well, Paula. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so what I wanted to state was so 3 things that I think we've already been talking with our Mexican friends last time I was there, but trying to expand it and illustrate it with my new responsibility. So these 3 things is that not only you need to open up data, but you also need to open up all kinds of digital resources. So APIs, code source, any kind of digital resources you have available. The second thing is that you need to create a community around it. I think that has already been understood, and a lot of projects are going on around that, so that the community can use these resources to modernize the state or the institution we're talking about. And the third one is that the value that we create with this process is not only economic value, but it can be all kinds of types of value, ecological, democratic, etc. So I've become a couple of months ago a French MP, and what we're trying to do there is to really like transform the French Parliament into a huge laboratory. So we're trying to hack the French Parliament, as we say it on the media, and what we want to achieve is that MPs can test and experiment on new practices thanks to digital, new, more democratic practices, more open, transparent, and participatory practices. And to do that, we need the French National Assembly to open up these resources. So we want to be able to collaborate with all an exterior community, so that MPs can learn about these new methods. For instance, the whole civic tech scene in France that is very is very consolidated. And for instance, some kinds of things that we're doing right now is pushing MPs to open up their budgets, putting them online. We're pushing them to open up their agendas. So this has a lot of impact on anti-corruption, because it's a way of tracking lobbies and every meeting each MP had. And we're also trying to push the institution itself to open up some kind of data that are really useful in order to create apps to follow up the legislative work. So, for instance, the data around amendments. So this, for now, is only accessible to MPs. And the idea is that we could open up this data and the source code of an app that is used internally, so that citizens can follow up and comment on real time and try to have an influence on how different bills are being treated at the National Assembly. So these are just a couple of examples, but the message behind it is that in any institution that you are, you can transform it digitally, and you have to make it with these 3 points that you can't let behind. So you can open up data, but also any kind of digital resource. You need to build a community around it, and you need to aim to different kinds of values, not only democratic, but also ecological, and not only economical, sorry, but also ecological, democratic, etc. So I don't want to be more long, but I can answer to questions if you need any aspect of this more developed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. I'm going to ask you, so if you have any question now, you can shoot now or can go. Okay, thank you very much, Paula. I would now leave the place to Gonzalo from Argentina.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Enrique. Hello, Paula. How are you? I know your heart is, your soul is still divided between France and Argentina.
Yes, always. A bit of Mexico now, because I represent French people from all the continents. So.
You're saying. Thank you. Thank you all. I have very limited time, and I'm eager to learn from the rest of my colleagues. So I will go straight to the point about where do we stand in terms of open government data in Argentina and how it plays out with the broader set of anti-corruption policies. As you may know, Argentina had in 2016 a major policy shift regarding open government transparency and accountability in general, but this change has been particularly important when it comes to open government data. A lot has happened over the year when it comes to open government data, so let me start with a brief, basically with a brief reminder. First, President Macri signed an executive decree on January 2016, just a few days after arriving into office, setting up for us a very aggressive agenda in terms of proactive transparency, targeting specifically budget execution, procurement, civil service, declaration of assets, the lobby register, and other data sets that we consider are extremely important or critical for improving government accountability. We consider basically this executive order as the foundation of our work, since it also mandates each executive agency to craft and maintain a data asset inventory and to establish a clear publication commitments for an open government, for an open data plan. But in simple words, at the heart of this executive order lies a very simple concept, which is that open data policies should allow citizens to trace government policies and actions back to every single decision maker, administrative rule, or budget allocation. That's the very heart of the executive order. So, as I said before, we made some we think very important advances in terms of how do we publish procurement information, which depends critically. I have to say it's the same with budget execution, declaration of assets, company register, or whatever the systems are you talking about. Basically, it depends critically on what are you doing in terms of the systems and the critical technological infrastructure that lies at the bottom of the public administration. So we made some very good progresses. That we think it's basically one of the most critical aspects of the first year of the implementation of the national open data policy. The second thing is that Argentina also signed the International Open Data Charter back in March 2016, following our previous experience in the city of Buenos Aires, one of the first cities in doing so. And we are now hoping the OCDE Charter to become some sort of cultural meme within the administration, with more and more provinces and more local governments willing to basically to adopt it. So this is particularly relevant for Argentina, since we are a federal country like Mexico. The success or failure of open data policies depends not only on our performance at the national level, but also on the ability of our 24 provinces and 2,000 plus local governments to move forward with the agenda. So finally, when it comes to policy, the president also sent an access to information bill, which was approved by the National Congress and passed into law by the end of 2016. In years of harsh fights between the government of the day and the vast coalition of CSOs, basically, and political parties demanding the law to be enacted. So I have not much to say about this particular point, except that Argentina was long overdue with this particular matter. But if anything, this delay gave us chance to incorporate some aspect of the right to data into the freedom of information law, which we found pretty exciting. Since open data policies are really codified into law. I think that's the case of Mexico also, but I think it's still a kind of rarity. So far I have described the major components of our, what we call the policy environment, but while we think it's important to set up a solid policy framework for openness, especially one that sets clear innovation, we are also true believers of the importance of practical delivery. So let me be more clear about our operational principles and what we have accomplished so far. First, the way we see our job is about building an open data infrastructure, which is I think it's also the approach that have many other countries such UK and Mexico are basically the same kind of approach. And this open data infrastructure is one that includes the development of legal frameworks, but also extends to a rock-solid technical implementation to building capacity in our internal and external partners. And perhaps the more important aspect of it is to help openness in general to become a meme within the administration. At the end of the day, we are here to change the terms of a simple equation, which is very important for us. People, no matter if we are talking about a journalist, a researcher, an entrepreneur, or a policy analyst working within the government, spends 90% of the time trying to get workable data and 10% of the time actually getting something out of data. So we think it should be exactly the opposite, and it's our job to get this happen. Second point, we believe in the importance, it's strategically important and tactically correct, and we also say like emotionally smart, to show people working at the line ministries and executive agencies what's in it for them when it comes to open data policy. So we believe in sharing with them the practical and symbolic benefits of opening up data. Yes, access to data is right, and so it's basically their job to publish it, but we don't need government officials to just publish data. We need to excel at how they actually publish it. So, and for that to happen, we think compliance is basically not the only game in town. Success, I think personally, means that opening up data is not perceived by ministerial departments and executive departments as mere regulatory compliance, basically, but as an important piece of their value creation chain. So in this regard, we took a fundamental step. We promoted and facilitated the infrastructure for each executive agency to launch their own open data initiative and take pride of it, provided we can federate their data into the central open data portal. Today we have 12 departments in this condition, when we expect to have the whole of the main executive departments with their own open data section, and we are now covering everything from justice to transport to social security. We think this is a fundamental step towards the resilience of our open data policy. Implementation does not basically depend on a single central implementation office, but on a larger network of independent departmental nodes which have embedded openness into their operational routines. Last but not least, we believe our job is not just to help government agencies to supply quality relevant data, but also to boost demand side, to boost the demand side of the equation. In other words, our job is to produce a constant, deliberate imbalance between the supply side and the demand side of public sector information and open government data in particular. Community is our capacity. That's the motto we have painted in our walls. And by our community, we mean government officials, journalists, entrepreneurs, businesses, researchers, and civil society organizations, among others. We know we depend on them, and we are lucky to have a strong civil society movement in Argentina. I think we can end here and wait for the Q&A section. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. A number of very interesting inputs for questions and discussion. And now I would like to leave the floor to our friends from Spain. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. First of all, we want to thank Enrique Zapata and you for inviting us to be here in this webinar, sharing our experiences in building an intermediary ecosystem in Spain. I'm going to give the floor to Salvador because he is probably the most expert here in Spain regarding open data issues, and he was here from the beginning. So he's the best person to explain you the Spanish initiative and how it has been developed. So please, okay. Salvador.
Thank you very much, Cristina. Hello, everybody. Well, regarding the long-term sustainability of the policy, that was one of the objectives mentioned by Barbara at the beginning. We think there are 4 areas which should be addressed. At least we did it in our case, and it was working pretty well. The first one is that the policy should be as inclusive as possible. There is a challenge of making this policy initiative part of everyone and make everybody feel part of it. So when there is a change, that there will be changes, you will have some continuity of people. So we've done that with good results. I mean, we've been working with people in the political opposition, I mean, and after that they have passed to the government and they have continued with this. So, and for instance, we are using for that purpose an annual conference we are organizing. There is some kind of national reference for gathering of all people in Spain, and what we call Encuentro Aporta. And this is the place where we gather people, we chat between all of them. We facilitate this kind of exchange of opinion, of personal contact. And this has been, I know that some initiatives in Spain have been derived as a result of this national gathering events. This is the first thing, be inclusive. The second, in our opinion, is getting external elements of support. For us in Europe, we have 2 directives regarding PSI reuse. That's very important for us. Also, we have the OECD papers. We have other countries of reference, G8 and other countries. We also have the report from consulting firms, international leaders. So we use all these external references to get additional support for our policies. The third pillar of it is that we try to build positive messages always. We try not to present that as a threatening element to anybody, but some kind of positive message explaining that the administration has the public sector information that is a very valuable asset of high quality. This is like the petrol of the 21st century. And we are in some kind of public interest obligation to put it in the service of the society. And this is also an opportunity to modernizing the economy, the public administration, and the well-being of the society. So the third pillar is building always positive messages. The fourth, in our case, is the operational cost. We've been focusing on keeping the operational costs modest in order to avoid some kind of problem with public spending cuts. So we've been very modest in our budgets, in our actions, relying more on continuity than on big impact in a short term. So we started in 2008, and that's been a long time ago already, but with a focus of just raising awareness, facilitating a better functioning of the value chain of data, working with demand, with supply, and being modest, but with a continuity vision of our action. This is our sustainability way of doing things, and it's been working pretty well for the moment. So we are happy with that. This is our experience. I don't know if this is going to work for everybody, but for us has been okay, has been fine. And regarding the promotion of the reuse of public sector information in Spain, we find it now a bit more difficult to promote the reuse in the private sector. So we are now a bit more focused on that part of the chain value. We've been doing, this is the fourth study of our intermediary sector that we have just published. This is important for us because this is a good diagnosis of the public sector. What are the problems, the requests, and how they see the public administrations. So this study is important for us. As a part of the last study, we have published best practices with an in-depth review. With these best practices, we want to set specific examples of what is going on, what is functioning in the market, how a company can make a business model based on data, and they can see. We have selected 12 examples. They can see some specific examples of companies making money with a good business model based on the use of data. So this is also, we think this is very good for those to promote the reuse. Additionally, we are building a general catalog of applications. We have almost 200 applications published. For those 200, we haven't made an in-depth study, but for the other, yes, we have made it already. We have organized that this October, they are going to finish now, prices for those who has been contributing a lot to the reuse of public data in Spain, some kind of prices for the impact they are having, and also prices for new ideas, for innovation, both. We are doing both in parallel and in separate exercises. And we keep building a virtual community. That's important. We have more than 12,000 Twitter followers, more than 2,000 monthly newsletters distributed. And this is one also part of our actions to promote the reuse. There are many things, but I wanted to focus on these ones. So please, if you need if I can help with other additional information, I'll be happy. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salvador.
Thank you.
Now we leave the floor to YS, who's joining us at a very late time in Korea. So thank you very much, YS, for being with us and for the extra effort. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Enrique. Thank you, Arturo. Thank you, Siri. Hello, everyone. Speaking from Korea. So my topic is on the law. And so first, we need to ask, why do we need a law? What is the difference between having a law and not having a law? We have to remember or remind ourselves that open data is an agenda about releasing information or data held by government. That means civil servants have to release the data. What makes civil servants move? What makes the civil servants move is explicit legal basis, regulations, laws, and etc. High-level political slogans, speeches are good in some way, but at ground level, what civil servants pay attention on the legal basis. The stronger the legal basis, the better. So decree better than perhaps guidelines, law better than decree.
YS, I think we lost you for a minute. We cannot hear you.
Who's speaking?
YS. We lost YS and the sound for a second.
Any questions from the?
Maybe
we can see him, but we can't hear him.
Yes. YS, if you can hear us, we lost you for a minute. Lost your sound. Maybe while we try and fix. Yeah. Well, we try and fix YS sound. I have an important question for Salvador.
Yes.
Salvador, you were talking about how to build positive messages around what you're trying to do in Spain with open data.
Yes.
Mexico, the issues of trust and legitimacy are key for the working government and are also a key part of the open data policy and the value proposal that we have. The question is, how particularly are you using data to build this trust and legitimacy with the public? And if you've seen any changes towards this in Spain?
Enrique, I can't hear you now pretty well. I didn't quite understand I understood that you were asking me about how to build positive messages, but no more than that, sorry.
How to build trust?
Well, there is a question of trust, an important question of trust among citizens, that is protecting their personal data. This is talking about trust. This is important, and we've been working with our data protection agency to have this solved a bit, because we don't want the citizens to be against this kind of initiatives of open data. And the other thing is we've been working a lot in the creation of economic value, more than anything else. So the question here is how much economic value you create. You can discuss about it. It can be more or less, but it is positive. We've been working on that in our country and in Spain. We have now data that we have created about more than 5,000 jobs in the last 4 years in relation to data reuse in Spain. So that's quite positive. You can discuss if it is 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000, but it is in any case a quite positive message. And we are also testing the market, and we see that there are a lot of new companies that has been created with very few people that are now big companies. I mean big, much bigger than 3 or 4 years ago. They started 2 people, and now they are 30 people. So these examples are quite positive, and this is our milestone of our messages now.
Thank you.
I don't know if I am answering the question.
No, I think that this was very useful. Thank you very much, Salvador. Maybe we can pass once again to YS and see if we can hear you now, YS. No. Salvador, we have one question from the chat for you. There is one person that would like to learn more about the catalog of 200 applications that you just mentioned. I don't know if you could provide a little bit of further information about it.
Well, yeah, we have a space in our website that is just for reflecting existing applications of reuse of data, just with an objective of showing that there are a lot of possibilities that everybody can do with data. I'm not following this catalog closely, but it is public. It is in our website, and we are happy to give any further information. The last number I have is what we have almost 200 applications there, but I don't have much more information about this.
Thank you very much. In any case, if they have further questions, I think they can reach you through the Twitter account of datos.gov.es, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Tom and Pauline, we have another question here from YouTube that maybe you could answer. How can the Mexican government improve the democratization of data? Specifically talking about the use of open data and the skills needed to use it. Pauline, Tom? Maybe if not, Gonzalo, maybe.
Sorry, apologies. Tom has had to leave, so I can't give us complete an answer. One of the ways that the UK is moving towards is a system of canonical information. So we're actually doing an examination across data sets for obvious data, such as country lists, etc., across the whole of government. We're finding the single, sorry, hello?
I think we now hear YS. So YS, if you give us 1 second for Pauline to finish answering your question, and then we come back to you.
So one of the examples that we're doing is finding individual owners for data sets, such as a list of countries for the whole of government to draw down on. And we make that person completely responsible for the accuracy, update, and maintaining it. We've combined that with setting a data science ethics framework, which is basically about how we will go about gaining data, how we will go about using data, and that we will always publish information and be open via blogs, other social media channels about why we're using the data in the way that we are. So again, we're trying to create single places so that the public builds a trust around I know I can go to that piece of information. It will always be the most accurate one because that's the undertaking that we're giving on the website.
Thank you very much, Pauline. YS, I think that we can hear you now.
Oh, you lost my voice in the middle.
Yes. But there you are.
Sorry. Oh, will you want me to continue?
Yes, over to you, YS.
Oh, where did you lose me?
At the start. So maybe you can start with your presentation.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Let me just begin again. Sorry. I keep losing connection anyway. Okay, so my topic is about the law. We have to ask, why do we need a law? What is the difference between having a law and not having a law? We have to remember or remind ourselves that open data is about releasing information or data held by government. That means civil servants have to release the data. What makes civil servants move? High-level political slogans, speeches are good, but at ground level, what civil servants pay attention are legal bases, laws, regulations. Stronger the legal basis, the better. So maybe decree better than guidelines, law better than decree. In Korea, this has made all the difference. Transforming Korea from maybe being in the backwaters of open data to being maybe one of the leaders. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I know.
Okay. just checking. So let me just mention about 4 points. History of open data law in Korea, key features, benefit of having a law, and limitations. First, history. Korea has been having a lot of trouble moving open data agenda forward. It seems maybe the open data is kind of a recent agenda, but the concept has been around for a long time. So similar to EU's PSI policy. In Korea, we had in the early 2000s a law called Online Digital Content Industry, which included some provisions similar to what we would call open data today. But they were very weak provisions, and we didn't really get very much. Then in the early 2010s, we had some predecessor mechanisms of the current open data regime. And again, they were not very effective because it again lacked some teeth. By this time, US, UK, and other leaders were racing ahead with open data. And Korea, there was a lot of a sense of urgency. So in 2012, full-scale open data law was proposed at the National Assembly, but it was at the end of a presidential term, so it made a little more time perhaps to get it passed. Then in 2013, when the new government came in, one of the flagship programs was government innovation, with open data being an integral part of that. So in 2013, the open data law was passed fairly quickly. And during the legislative process, the law was sold to politicians as an agenda that will create economic growth and, more importantly, jobs. No politician is going to oppose that, so it was maybe one of the factors that it was passed in fairly quick terms. And also, from the beginning, it was made very clear that this was a separate agenda, transparency agenda. So it was focusing on maybe economic and social value creation. You hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just now talk about some key features of open data law in Korea. The law codified into law the principle of open data, open by default, and perhaps more importantly, it codified into law on the right
of the public to use these open data for commercial purposes. So that was very important to kind of lift off perhaps the innovative creativity of the private sector in knowing that they can use the data for commercial purposes. Other features of law include regarding scope. It covered not just central but also local governments. Perhaps Korea has a lot of advantage in that sense because we are a unitary state. So getting all the central and local government on board and having that language included in the law was a little more easier. Also, the law was kind of improvement from previous legislative efforts in that most of the provisions said you must do this, you must do that. Whereas previous legislations, including the one I mentioned a few minutes ago, most of the provisions just said you can do this, you can do that. So this was kind of a leapfrog from the previous versions. Now, just talking about the benefits of the law. Well, in Korea, the law was and is and will be everything. Everything we do, from pan-government coordination of central and local governments to open up the data, improving data quality, operating open data portal, collaboration between public and private sector to utilize the data, getting funding for the open data efforts. All this would just not have been possible without the law. We know this because from experience before the law, we were just not getting anywhere much. Now to just mention about the limitations. Just because you have a law, it does not mean that you'll get everything you want. So continued political support is very important. We are constantly reminded of this point by perhaps finance ministry people, because they often tell us, just because you have something in the law, it does not mean that you get all the budget that you want. And also, we had a change in government this year. But fortunately, the new government shows great interest in open data. And we are working hard to keep open data high on the national agenda. And I will conclude by saying that OECD cooperation process is very important to that effort. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Yes.
Yes, I have a question for you, YS, and it's actually two questions. One, when having the law and regulation, you limit yourself to what you can do around data or definitions. The question is, how do you deal with technological progress and new technologies having a law already set in place? And the second is how the law supported you in achieving this high value of open data with the new government?
I didn't exactly understand the first point. How the law and technology does what?
How do you deal with technological change, having a regulation already in place?
Oh, well, the open data law is more or less technology neutral. So the law is not specifically state or promote one technology over another. It just says key points are, open up the data, use, let the private sector utilize the data to create values and jobs. So technological development will be kind of incorporated into policy that has foundation in the law. So the law does not necessarily impede or promote one type of technology over another. And the second question was,
how did this law help you achieve a high political support with the changing government?
First thing is that once you have the law, it's very difficult to abolish it, even if you're the incoming government. So the law provides a stable environment. One example of this is that I mentioned that when the previous government came in, they were pushing very strongly for government innovations. So they created this committee called what we call Government 3.0 Committee, which was kind of like an umbrella for not just open data, but other government innovation programs. But when the new government came in, the committee was abolished. The government innovation agenda will go on, but that previous committee was abolished. I'm sure they will create a new committee that will continue to work on government innovation, but the committee itself was abolished. So again, we had a government 3.0 committee, and we had Open Data Strategy Council. But the council is still here because it was based on the laws. So maybe in that aspect, during the change of governments, if you have the law, there's more stability and continuation.
Well, yes, maybe for the purpose of to be clear with the viewers, can you please provide further information on what the Open Data Council is? Because I think it's a really key point for the governance for Open Data in Korea.
Okay, the Open Data Strategy Council in Korea is the highest level decision-making body on open data policy in Korea. It is based on the law, and the interesting thing is that we have two co-chairmen. One of the co-chairmen is the Prime Minister, which allows pan-government coordination. And the interesting part of this is that we have a second co-chairman, and the second co-chairman is from the private sector. So this allows public sector and private sector collaboration, and it brings in people from the outside the government into the policy decision making process, which will guarantee the input from the people who are actual users of open data to have their opinion incorporated into the policy. So the council is composed of not just, the council is composed of mostly ministers, central government ministers, some heads of provincial governments, and also people from academia, research institutions, press and media. They're all included in the council, which makes it a very kind of a all-encompassing and participatory process.
It's a multi-stakeholder collaboration forum, right?
Yeah, yes, it brings stakeholder collaboration into the policy-making process. Yeah.
Thank you, Luis.
I have a question for Gonzalo. Argentina, Gonzalo, the new government has come from the city of Buenos Aires, and the relationship and the value that you've been able to pull out from the state level in Argentina is, has made you a poster child of open data at the state level. For a government, federal government as Mexico, what recommendations would you have to continue building these open data champions at the state and municipal governments without necessarily having the adequate regulatory tools to make something mandatory around open data?
Enrique, can you repeat the last few words, please? Because I'm having some problems with connections here.
Okay, the basic question is, what recommendations could you make to Mexico around building a stronger data ecosystem at the state and municipal levels?
Cool. That's a very good question. Thank you for the poster child thing. with the city of Buenos Aires. We think we did a pretty good job when open data policies were not quite extended and obvious. So it was a very good experience and a very solid basis for what we are doing at the national level. You have to define. You have to choose what do you believe is your effective role when you are a national government in a federal context. I think basically we believe in two things. We can facilitate local governments and provinces the basic infrastructure of openness, and by the basic infrastructure we mean the basic technology. I mean making for local governments and provinces basically cheaper to implement open data policies. And that is not only about technology, but also about standards and recommendations, which are believe me, are very, and you know about it, of course, are very expensive to develop. And sometimes small local governments or even medium-sized local governments do not have the time basically to define adequate standards for openness. So the starting thing is basically developing those things. In that regard, in Argentina, we now basically we adopted in terms of technology. We get SICAN. Basically, we are users of the SICAN platform, which is, I mean, I do not put much importance on the role of technology here, but sometimes, basically, if you can take some hard to use technology like SICAN or open data portals and turn it into something very useful and easy to implement, it's a good thing. That's what we did here in Argentina, and of course, with local governments setting up the right environments for them to get the level of awareness about the benefits of open data in particular. So I think it's a combination of two things: facilitating basically the adoption of the policies and technology, and in second place, getting advantage of some basically events, especially crafted to make the awareness about the open data policy effective.
Gonzalo, tengo una pregunta para ti sobre un tema. Sorry, I have a question, Gonzalo, for you on a different aspect. Enrique was mentioning the importance for the government of Mexico of utilizing the open data policy also as a way to strengthen the legitimacy and trust towards the government from the whole society. And an aspect that I really praise in the case of Argentina is how focused you've been in linking the open data policies and initiatives to the anti-corruption agenda, but moving beyond just the idea of access to information. So really taking up the open data as an enabler of the collaboration also with actors within the broader community, which are very much interested on the reuse of open data to support your efforts as a government to fight corruption. So linking, these two ideas, and the third element of Salvador, which is how do you create positive messages? My question to you is, how did you guys, from a central government perspective, try also to build positive stories around and positive messages around the reuse of open data by the whole community to support your efforts as a government to fight corruption?
Well, let me think about it. Basically, I think, like I said when in my intervention, basically probably in Latin America, this is I think this is the case. I don't, probably Mexico is beyond this, but in places like Argentina, anti-corruption is basically the basic entry point for open data policies. I think in my view, in my perspective, it's we all know that if we have to think a policy, an outcome framework for open data policy, it's much more complex than that. But in Argentina, basically 90% of the attention about open data, it starts with anti-corruption, and for that, I think, it's important for the resilience of the open data initiatives in, I think, not only in Argentina, but the essential thing, it has how do you boost basically internal and external demand. But the way to do it, basically, and it's probably the function of, if you have to think a function and how the resilience of the open data policy is basically achieved, you have to think about how openness and open data is basically embedded in the operations of the anti-corruption offices, of the judicial system, of the media. So you have to put the efforts. If you really want to have resilience in mind, you have to tie your open data policy into the basic functioning of the anti-corruption system. So that's basically one thing. The other thing is that we usually have basically a central paradox in open data, which I think it's true for Argentina, but it's true for other Latin American countries. That everyone, if we have to be honest, everyone think we in the public sector, we are very dumb at managing information and very dumb in the public sector at creating or crafting technology. See? But on the other side, everyone thinks, government officials included, that the data we publish should be perfect, authoritative, and the single version of truth. All right. So these two things, I think, create the conditions for what we call transparency paralysis. All right. So this led to paralysis, basically. So the two sentences cannot be true at the same time, and if they are true, basically it leads to the impossibility of publishing data. So if I have to rewrite basically the Karl Popper open society and its enemies, and it has to be open data and its enemies, I would say that this paradox is essential and we have to deal with it.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. I think we have some more questions.
Yes, Salvador, this is an open question. I mean, so please feel free to jump in if you would like to respond to it. But I think it would be good to hear at the very beginning about this question from Salvador. We have a question in regard to how bottom-up initiatives are being integrated in the open data ecosystem. I mean, how initiatives that are taking place at the local level of government are actually integrated in the inverse form. We will be discussing about a more top-down approach, but we are curious about actually how these initiatives taking place at the local level are actually influencing the central open data policy. So I don't know, Salvador, if you have some insights on this.
Yeah, well, in our case, the central administration has been the first administration talking about open data in Spain. So we've been a bit the pioneering this issue in Spain, but we've been in this effort of disseminating, of making this as inclusive as possible. We've been in contact with many people, gathering them, transmitting illusion to them, if I can say that, and people got some kind of enthusiasm about this initiative, and they have started their own initiatives by their own. For instance, we have had 2 months ago, more than 200 municipalities going together to produce a local guide for open data, local guide from a local perspective, with their problems, with everything very focused on them. And I was talking to one of the responsible of this initiative, and he told me, well, I was impressed in your national gathering event. So I didn't remember him, but I think I was talking to him, and he was some kind of, he saw the opportunity and he started this initiative. So, but you need time. You need some kind of time to disseminating the ideas, to get people that are influenced by these opportunities, and to give them opportunities also and possibility to develop their own actions. And we have had a very good guide, putting together more than 200 municipalities and producing a guide and 20 data sets that are a priority for them, that they are agreeing how to standardize those kind of data sets. So they are doing this kind of things. And this is how this is working in practice.
Thank you very much, Salvador. I don't know if any other of the peers have any comments about this question. No?
Yeah, so I think Paula is not connected anymore, but I've been working with Paula when Paula was part of ETALAB, which is the task force responsible for open data in France, which is attached to the Prime Minister's office. And a big focus of the French policy on open data has been right from the beginning to create an ecosystem of active actors at the local level. So starting from empowering them to use the central government portal to upload data and to create collaborations with a number of actors from the private sector, from the civil society, to co-create solutions, to running, for instance, hackathon events, but also having national prizes, which were held at the local level. So instead of having, the national prize ceremony held in Paris, the ceremony and the whole event is actually held at the local level of government, hosted by one of the big cities across France, to also give visibility and space to the local level. So I think what Salvador was mentioning about creating also the idea of a community, the enthusiasm, the capacities on one side, but also giving visibility to those that actually are more active, are some of the actions that create this culture and this idea that the open data is not something that is owned only by the central government, but is actually a shared public program and shared public value that has to be the result of all these actors coming on board together. But I think, that the engagement also to bring visibility to what's happening at the local level is extremely important. I don't know if there's any other intervention from the speakers on this. Salvador, I think so.
If I can add something, we have produced a map of all the initiative, open data initiative in Spain. So they see themselves reflected. So you can see all of them in the map. You can see some small characteristic of this. This is a way of giving them visibility. We also work with them to produce norms. There is some kind of, we produce a standard norm for municipalities. In 1 year ago, we produced a standard norm for municipalities, and also a technical norm that allow them to measure how mature they were opening data. So we've made that together with them. They were a local norm, a standard norm for them, but we were participating. But they were the leaders. We were not the leaders. But we were helping a lot with other information and all the content we had at the end, because we had more content than they had at this moment. So we helped a lot, but they were the leaders because they had to implement it in practice.
Thank you very much, Salvador. I think we came to an end. We were very good in handling the time. I think there are more questions coming in electronically, and I would definitely have more questions for all the peers who joined, but in the interest of time, I think we have to close. I will not go through all the key points I had, but I want to just finish by saying that the UK started, Tom started by saying that it was nice to see how many friends around the table connected from around the world. And I want to close with this idea, because if I look at the peers who are connected, they're all friends. I think the nice characteristic of the open data work is that it started in a very, but we didn't have a structured way to go around it, right? Neither from the OECD perspective, nor maybe in some of your countries. So it's really a community of friends. And this dialogue will continue. So thank you very much. And I leave the floor to Enrique to give you also his advice.
Just to say thank you very much to Gonzalo, Tom, Pauline, Cristina, Salvador, YS, and Paula. As Barbara was saying, you're all friends, you're all very close to Mexico. Thank you very much for your important insights. We will definitely work to move towards where you are right now, and this dialogue will definitely continue. So thank you very much. We look forward to speaking with you again. And with that, I say thank you to all the viewers. Muchas gracias a todos los que estuvieron visto. Y adiós, que tengan muy buen día, good afternoon, and good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Un placer. A pleasure.